Hi, and thank you for joining me for today's reading of Unbreakable Darkness by L.M. Preston, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. Dex eyed the new school with some discomfort. In New York, he'd been one of the largest guys on his football team. Here, in Newport, he doubted he'd be average size. The kids at this high school must eat well. Even the girls seemed different. Healthy, tall, with an air of comfort in their skin Dex rarely saw in his last school. May as well go in. He rubbed his hands together, then climbed the steps leading to the door. Pressing through the thick rush of students trying to get in before the bell rang, he glanced down at his old Vans. Envy irritated him for taking his favorite pair. He didn't know why she did it. His foot was larger than hers. Dex flinched at the thought, knowing Vita liked to take him off. He refused to call her by her self-proclaimed nickname, Envy. He rolled his eyes. She insisted that everyone call her Envy since she wanted a boxer name for when she made it big. That was what he had to hear from her every night she was forced to pick him up from the gym. He just got his license, and it sucked. He hated to admit to her, sparring with her was getting more challenging, and he couldn't rely on his strength over hers. His sister could kick his ass, and most guys he knew, too. Hey, you! A girl with bright orange hair waved at him. Try this door. She cocked her head to the side, pointing at a slender door all the students seemed to ignore. Dex jumped to the final step and grabbed the door she held open. Thanks. He gave the girl a quick smile and followed her inside. Anytime. She held out her hand. New here? Dex smirked. You can tell. He grasped her hand in a shake and frowned at how tightly she gripped his. Yep, I'm Megan. Dex. He pulled his hand away from hers. She was stronger than he even wanted to comprehend. Short for Dexter? She pursed her lips and squinted her eyes, studying him. Just call me Dex. Dex never liked being called by his first name. Today he'd deal with it, though. First day at school was usually the worst. They had teased him about his name most of ninth grade. I like Dexter better, but I'll call you Dex, she smiled. For now. Well, thanks for opening the door. I gotta go to class. He dismissed her and pressed past her to end the conversation. Something about the girl seemed strange. He did not want to know what. He wanted to get away from her as quick as possible. The first class was art history, a class that excited him. He didn't want to make it seem so, but in New York, he did his share of tagging abandoned buildings, bridges, and subways. It was the reason he was still on punishment. Seemed to be the story of his life. Just when he got out of trouble, it found him again. Dad had to pick him up from the police station a few months ago when he'd got caught. His dumb friend left his bag of spray paint behind, and Dex had gone back to get it. It wasn't so bad. The cop knew his father and let him go with a warning after a few hours in the cell. Problem was, his father made him pay for it a lot more than a night in jail would. They stripped him of driving, an allowance, and any time out of the house for what seemed like forever instead of the entire summer. Then, after that, well, he'd gotten into a car accident with his mother's car, so there it was, punished again. He glanced down at his phone to double-check the classroom and opened the door. Dex stopped in the doorway. The girl Megan was waving at him and pointing at a seat next to her. Nope, there was no way he was sitting next to Megan. Instead, he took a seat in the front of the class. Tapping a thumb on the edge of the desk, Dex absorbed the richness of the classroom. It was like nothing he'd ever seen. The curved ceiling had a mural on it. Someone painted with the mural in vivid colors of reds, greens, and gold, with intricate designs of fairy figures being chased by giants. The picture seemed to shift and move the more you looked at it. His gaze bounced from picture to picture, absorbing the images of the overlapped collage of impressions, and considering that while he studied it as an entire piece, it was a single picture. It was amazing that each part was a single and unique piece of work. Like a living scene, isn't it? A soft voice uttered beside him. Dex turned, hoping it wasn't Megan. He was surprised it was a girl with deep brown skin and a short blonde pixie cut. Her dark brown eyes were large and seemed to draw him in as they sat on her high cheekbones. He smiled at her. It is. She pursed her full pink lips and smiled back, revealing a dimple on her right cheek. Are you interested in art? A bit. You have an artist's hands. Nah, a running back's hands. I don't do traditional art. Me neither. What's your name? Dex wanted to get to know her. The girl seemed mysterious, but in a shy, sweet way. Yori. Can I see that? Dex eyed her heavily decorated notebook. Are you going to laugh at it? I guess it looks like a craft project gone wild, but I like to make things mine. No, I just want to see it. Yori pursed her full lips colored in purple that matched her long earrings. Okay, but give it back before she starts. Got you. He took it from her, running his finger over the raised paper designs and jewels she put on it. Then he opened it. Dex jotted down his name and number, then put Study Buddy above his name. He smirked and drew a caricature of himself before closing it and giving it back. She didn't bother opening the flap of the notebook, but crossed her legs, covered in black tights, and tapped her jeweled tennis shoes foot on the floor. The teacher hit her wooden pointer on the blackboard. Welcome to art history, she clapped. Your journey to artistry starts here. Dex fought back the urge to laugh. The class lasted forever. He loved art, just not hearing the history. The entire time, he kept eyeing Yori to see if she opened the flap. At the end of the class, he rolled his eyes, then watched Yori, waiting for her to finally open the flap of the notebook. Her eyes lifted to Dex's, and she frowned. Biting her lip, she turned to get out of her desk. I have a boyfriend. He won't like this. Dex ran his hands through his thick, wavy hair. Sorry about that. It's in pen. Yori tapped her finger on the notebook, said, Here, it's yours, and pushed it against his chest. Dex flattened his palm on the notebook. He hated that his heart twitched. His eyes, though, wouldn't give up. They followed the swish of her hips out the door. Way to go, he muttered to himself. Stifling a groan at the smiling Megan headed his way, he hurried from the room. Chapter 2. He ditched Megan. Something about the girl with the red hair and old eyes made him uncomfortable. She'd give even the most hard-ass New Yorker the creeps. She was a looker, pretty in a whimsical way, but too pushy for his taste. Moving through the crowded halls, he got to math class early. It was his favorite subject. He was less likely to make a move on a girl there. Although he could stomach the lectures, he'd rather ditch the class and just do the work. He was sure he wasn't the only student to feel that way. Most people didn't want to be there, so they didn't talk. He got to the door, and his sister Vita was walking towards him. Hey, Vita, wait up! His shoes were on her feet with different shoelaces wrapped twice around her ankles. She ignored him like she usually did when he didn't call her by her stupid nickname. Envy! She did a quick pivot and jogged the other way. Damn! Bad enough she had his sneakers, but she'd made it so he didn't even want them anymore. Who put fake rhinestones on a perfectly good pair of Nikes and expect him to want to wear them? A guy carrying football cleats came from the connecting corridor. He had blonde hair and was taller than him. Dex followed and walked alongside the boy, trying to get his attention without invading the player's space. You play on the varsity team here? The guy spied him, irritated. Yeah, so? When are tryouts? The player stopped and laughed. You need to grow some to compete at varsity level, kid. I was JV last year, looking to get a shot this year. If you don't mind getting your ass handed to you on the field, tryouts are after school. Those kids were recruited from last year. Doubt he'd give a noob your size a chance. It is invitation only here. But don't give up. You could get a chance if someone dropped off his original list. You never know. Go see Coach Moreau. Thanks, Dex waved when the guy dipped into an open classroom. Dex's cell phone vibrated. Glancing down, he groaned. His younger sister Ray's picture appeared on the side of her text. Help! Front of school! Side lot! Dex responded. WTH, math class is happening. Now, or I'm telling you took the car last night. She would. He shot a scathing glance at the phone one last time before jogging in the opposite direction of the class. He pushed through the students blocking his path to the side exit door near the bathroom and burst through. There stood his younger sister, Ray, stomping her foot at an officer writing a ticket. Dex ran over to her and slid to a stop. What's going on? Her petite back straightened. She pointed at the cop. He said I need the license and registration for this car. I told him my brother's got the key, but he doesn't believe me. Well, hell, why did she lie like that? Envy was driving the car. Dex didn't drive. He rode his bike. He shrugged because he did have a key. Can you open the car and get it out? Dex frowned at her. What was she doing? Yeah. He took the key from his back pocket and opened the door. Then he got in and rummaged through the glove compartment, searching for the black case with the car information in it, grabbing it to show the officer. Hurry! Ray knocked on the window. Wait! Dex came from the car with the case. She snatched it from his hand. I got this, brother. Ray dismissed him, rummaged through the case, then handed it to the cop. Dex signed. wanting this strange episode to be over. The cop smirked at them, then pivoted away. He gave one quick peek over his shoulder at Ray, nodded, then walked to his car and drove off. What the hell was that? Why did you lie to him? Did he take our registration? Dex turned Ray around to face him. She waved her hand at him. Not what you think. There's another copy in the top console. Nothing you would know about. Just remember, tell no one. If you do, your first day off punishment will be toast. Ray shrugged and sauntered away like a cat. Is she stupid? They don't give you more than one registration. What the hell was Ray talking about? He checked the time on his phone. Damn, skipped my first math class of the year. Dex didn't understand what just happened. He scratched his head, looked back at the car, and shrugged. Sighing to himself, he realized it was lunchtime. He may as well get a real lunch, not the trash sold at school. He went to the driver's side of the car and hopped in. Hamburger and fries it was. Chapter 3. Dex's wristwatch alarm went off. He only had 5 minutes to make it back to the school in time for his next class. There wasn't any traffic and no one around, so he hit the gas and stuffed a few fries in his mouth. Sirens. Damn! He was getting pulled over. Dex sighed. Part of him wanted to run for it. The cop car was far back, but that would just get him in worse trouble than before. Luckily, there was no record of his history of tagging buildings and so-called vandalism. He snorted at the definition of what adults had called his art. Tagging buildings and bridges wasn't easy. He pulled over to the side and waited. A dark-haired, fair-skinned police officer came to his window. Dexter read his nameplate, Detective Kevin Whalen. Great. He didn't get pulled over by an officer, but a deputy. The detective bent down. Did you see the stop sign back there? Dex didn't answer, but swallowed down his smart retort and said, Son, can I have your license and registration? The detective bent down while being watchful of Dex's every move. Dex flipped the middle console open and took out the registration. He guessed Ray had given the other cop a copy of the registration. He didn't know. It all seemed strange to him, like something else had been going on earlier. Ray was an enigma, hard to read most times, and she was his own sister. Is it all right if I reach in my pocket to get my license? Dex wanted to make sure the cop didn't get trigger happy. Yes. Detective Whalen rested his arm on the top of the car and leaned closer. Dexter put his hand in his pocket to get his wallet. Were you aware of the curfew for students? The last 2 days, we've sent text and news notifications of a murder that occurred in the wooded area near the school during lunchtime. We ask that no teenagers are out during that time while we sweep the area. Dex pursed his lips at the typical police warning tactic. He said nothing, just handed the information to Detective Whalen. Can you speak? I asked you a question. I don't know about a curfew. Dex narrowed his eyes at the detective, or a murder. I don't listen to the news. I just moved here barely a month ago. The detective's brown eyes assessed Dex. All right, I'll be a moment. Dex hit the dashboard with his fist. It seemed to take forever for the detective to come back to the car. The detective cleared his throat. Dexter Lewis, I will have to take you in. Why? Dex swore, his voice cracked. Sir. It hurt to add that level of respect amid his concern. His father would kill him, literally beat the hell out of him. Not that his father usually did, but with all the trouble he'd gotten into during the last year, he'd swear his father was barely holding back. He'd be on punishment for the rest of his natural life. Why did a dark cloud of bad shit seem to hang over his head all the time? The detective gave him a look that made it clear he knew Dexter wasn't sincere about the tossed-in sir, but he recovered quickly. The car was reported in a hit-and-run at the high school earlier this morning. The policeman that took the report didn't conclude the statement by the driver. I think it's best to have you come in for a statement. I don't usually do patrol duty, but with us being short on staff and the curfew on, well, here we are. What the hell? Dex remembered the strange encounter with Ray and the cop. She must have driven the car somewhere. I don't know what you're talking about. I spoke to an officer this morning and he said everything was fine. That may be, but he didn't complete the report. As his superior, I want to make sure everything is covered. When we get there, I'll call your parents to pick you up for release. Step out of the car. Dex sighed. He was royally screwed. He turned the car off and removed the keys. Slowly, he opened the door. With keys in hand, he stepped out of the vehicle. The detective's hand opened in front of Dex. Give me the keys. Dex gave them to him. He couldn't help but grind his teeth together. Don't even think about running. I see the contemplation in your eyes. There's nothing to fear from me. Now turn around, just putting the cuffs on. It's protocol. Yep, he would get it, big time. He pivoted and let the cop handcuff him. Did you need to get your books out of the car? We'll be towing it. Dex dropped his head. Tow cost, picking him up from the police station when he was supposed to be at school. Yep, he was in so much trouble. Ray definitely hit someone in the damn parking lot. That's why she called him. He didn't know what she gave to the police officer, but she'd set him up. Just wait till he got home. Yeah, my backpack is in the seat. All right, I'll put you in the car and get your stuff. Wouldn't want you to miss a homework assignment because of this. Dex relaxed his arm as Detective Whalen put him in the back seat. He watched the detective search his entire car without permission. No warrant. The bastard. The detective came back to the cruiser. He tossed Dex's backpack and another small bag that looked like MV's stick-on craft accessory kit in as well. She'd carried it around to give her clothes and shoes extra bling. Detective Kevin Whalen got in the car and looked in the rearview mirror. Comfortable? As ever. Dex turned his gaze to the woods that lined the street. You're fairly new here. The detective started the car. Who are your parents? The name Lewis sounds familiar. Stella and Max Lewis. They own the new MMA training and gym facility near the school. Dex figured he may as well tell him. Maybe that will help him get out of the car and the police station faster. Never met them. I think my son signed up for some training sessions there. He plays varsity at the high school, and it's a requirement. Dex didn't respond. You know, the murders started at the end of last school year, right through the summer until now, likely before you moved here. Don't fear you'll be tied to them. Do you have friends here yet? Dex didn't get why the guy was being nice and trying to get information. I was going to meet some today. It's the first day of school. I planned on trying out for JV. Yes, it is. Don't worry, this won't affect that. Once we arrive at the station and get you cleared, I'll call the JV coach and make sure you get your shot. He rarely takes on kids he hasn't scouted the year before. The coaches are really selective. Dex raised his gaze to the mirror and searched the brown eyes of Detective Whalen. Thanks. Dex still didn't know why the detective picked him up. Taking him to the police station seemed excessive after stating that he couldn't be involved in the murders. The detective smiled. I look forward to meeting your father. Dread burned in Dex's stomach. That's the last person he wanted to see today. His dad wasn't usually difficult, but he didn't let stupidity slide. And today, Dex had been stupid. He hit his head against the back seat and closed his eyes.